as the contractionary impact of the government fiscal operations take hold, more and more companies that are marginal or individuals that are at marginal levels may find it much more difficult to survive what is likely to be a pretty tight economic performance during the coming year. I don't know if the government is only focused on meeting the IMF target. I mean, there are several ministries that have to go on, work has to go on, but the finances of the country is critical for us to actually achieve and move forward the way that we ought to move forward and unload some of the baggage that we have carried all along. The major problem that we have is one of the major problems is the fact that we have high levels of debt and expensive debt that is costing and consuming a significant part of the revenues of the country, of the government at any rate. And we need to get grip of that situation. The concept of a devaluation is to make locally produced goods and services more attractive than imported items, and place us in a position of some competitive position where we can better compete with imports, so that the devaluation actually lowers the local input cost. So it's not only a matter of raw materials that we may actually be importing, where we have to import to produce finished goods, but the local input costs will be reduced in real terms. And if we can do that and get increased production, it means that we can overcome some of the problems. And people may say, well, labor will get lower wages. They may get lower wages initially, but if we can produce 20 items instead of 10, the organization will be in a better position to reward people more, because the increased production and the profits from increased production can then compensate workers. And in some cases, corporations will provide incentives. So people may get, the fixed pay may actually fall in real terms, but there may be incentives, production incentives, that if you produce more, you end up getting a bonus based on the production. Nothing really. He seems to be quite serious to achieve what he sets out to achieve, and he's certainly based on his ambitions to be, certainly past, to be leader of the People's National Party and hopefully Prime Minister of the country, that he would want that people will look on and say, listen, this is an individual that his words are bankable. And therefore, when he says he's going to do something, you can look forward to it being achieved. Different people have different methods to approach things, and there's always some variation to that which you have. One of the things is that the program was originally predicated to get to a zero fiscal position, I think, in 2016. We have speeded it up, which means that we have not allowed the economy to function the way in a more robust manner, because we have sort of pulled down the shutters at an earlier stage. So you could have postponed bringing the fiscal position to where it is at a slow pace. You could also decide that you're going to divest a large segment of the things that government actually they are involved in, and therefore reduce the size of government. So there are a number of different approaches. Government owns shares in JPS. They could divest the shares. They own shares they port. They can divest those things at a faster pace. So there are a number of things in between that one can do. The question is, there's a budget of $400 billion. The question one has to ask oneself, where does one want to put the emphasis in terms of the resources? So it's a matter of where you put emphasis while achieving some of the same things. There are some people who feel that the government should let the chips fall where they may and cut the civil service. But many of the persons who say that don't understand the full implication of the cut in the civil service. And the savings for government is not the same as the savings in the private sector. The private sector, once you've made people redundant, that's it. They have a separate pension fund that they go to. In the case of government service, the government has to pay those persons, those who are going to be due for pension or reach pensionable age. The government has to pay roughly 2/3 of their salary to them as pension. So the savings is negligible over, say, a 4 or 5 year period, because it's going to cost roughly a year's salary to make people redundant, and that has to be, well. So when you take that plus the 2/3 salary that you have to pay them, and the negative economic implications for people who are getting less income, then the government gets less revenue. So that the benefit versus the social negative impact, that direct laying off of workers, particularly workers who are at a more advanced stage in life, can be quite devastating. And quite frankly, politically, when politicians look at those things, they are less inclined to go that route, because it tends to have significant political cost when you do significant laying off of people, while attrition. So there are those different approaches that one can take towards dealing with some of the issues. You could decide, I'll spend less money in one area and stimulate and provide incentive for some private sector entities or what have you. So yes, there are potential alternatives to achieving the same thing by shifting some of the focus from one area to the other. You could have, and as said earlier, one could have slowed down the pace at which one is going to a fiscally balanced budget or fiscally balanced government operation, coupled with earlier divestment of various entities that government don't need to be involved in.